Hi, everyone. A warm welcome back to season 2 of our podcast, Global Pulse in 60 Seconds. And today's episode features Dr. Weronika Michaluk, MedTech practice lead at HTD Health and a leading expert in digital health product development, software as a medical device, regulatory alignment, and patient centered innovation. Thank you so much for joining us, Weronika. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, really.
So, jumping straight to the core, you help innovators bring digital health products from concept to market. From your experience, what do most founders misunderstand about SAM journey?
It's a great question, actually, because there's so many different things that are misunderstood. But I would say that most founders actually underestimate how interconnected, SAMD, SAMD journey actually is. What do I mean by that? Like sometimes they think that, to develop a software as a medical device, they have to follow some specific sequence. Like, for example, they have to build a product, then think about regulations, then think about the business, then reimbursement. But actually, all of these decisions must happen in parallel because everything is so interconnected. So you have to think about your regulatory pathway actually before you even start writing a single line of code. Because, regulatory strategy is actually the thing that will then guide your next steps. Like, what you mentioned, we at HTD Health, we help different founders to actually build their software as a medical device solutions. And we really need from founders, to have regulatory strategy already defined, or we can help them to do so. So definitely, this misunderstanding from founders, especially the first time CEOs, it's the thing that they think, that regulatory is somewhere, product is somewhere, and business is somewhere else. But again, you have to think about it as a one. So because also like the regulatory choices would affect your architecture of the product, because depending on whether it will be software as a medical device class 2 or class 3, whether it will be 510(k) or de novo, you will have to comply with different regulations, and you will have to build your product in different ways. So I would just say maybe one more thing, that apart from this regulatory strategy, another misunderstanding is thinking that, okay, once I get the FDA clearance, I'm like, I'm successful. But actually, then it's about market access, like also adoption. So you also have to think, even before having that, FDA clearance, while building a product, you also have to think about end users and the adoptions. So what do I have to do to make my product be useful and be used by end users, whether patients, health systems, or clinicians? So that's the main misunderstanding, I would say.
You've made great points. Many founders still see SAM as mainly technical when it actually requires early alignment across clinical, regulatory, and user needs. And this leads nicely into my next question. So, software as a medical device development requires balancing regulation, usability, and patient needs. How do you help teams navigate these competing demands?
So again, I would say we help them kind of like see these different things like regulations, ability, interoperability as a one system. Again, not as a competing priorities, I would say. Because again, regulation will define your boundaries, right? And with these boundaries, you actually still have a lot of freedom to build your specific design, because the different regulations will actually, give you the framework, but then it's up to you what you will have to build. So we also help teams translate the, regulatory requirements into actually like concrete products, into good UX design decisions, early on. So to give you maybe some examples, like if there is a traceability required in a software as a medical device, we would design that into the workflow of the work in the way that it actually feels natural for the users, because we all need to avoid building a product that will require you like, clunky, let's say, sophisticated steps. And another one more very important thing, what I really emphasize pretty often, it's the interoperability, because, it's easy to build a product, but it's hard to build a product that will actually fit in nicely into a clinician workflow, into patient workflow, because, like physicians are super busy and are overwhelmed. And if you will build a product that doesn't speak to already like their EHR system, that is not connected, or it doesn't fit well into their everyday workflow, the adoption will be very bad, because it will add additional burden to physicians who are already very busy. So I would say, you have to really think about how to combine good design with interoperability needs, with all of these regulations from day zero to design the solution that end users will really want to use, because it's all about the adoption of the product that you are building.
Absolutely. Integrating these early on prevents issues later, as you said, and creates a much stronger product. And since you mentioned user experience and workflow, it ties directly to focus on behavior change design, which is a major part of your work. Can you share why this matters and how it strengthens digital health outcomes?
Great question. And, behavior change design is super important, because we all think about improving outcomes, right? Improve patient outcomes. And I would say that outcomes only improve when behavior changes. And behavior changes, it's really something that digital health space struggles with. And why? Like, how many apps do you have on your phone? I have a lot. And everybody has many, many different,
Same here,
apps.
guilty.
Exactly, lots, right? So it's hard to actually make you to kind of change your behavior to even like keep on using this new app your physician, let's say, will prescribe to you on a daily basis. But if you will not use the app, let's say on a daily basis or frequently, because not always you have to use it on a daily basis, it will be hard for you to also improve your outcomes, because you have to have this consistency, right? So when we design the product, we really have to think about, okay, like put ourselves into the shoes of end user. So what we do also at HTD, we before even like designing the product, we talk with end users. Recently, we were in with a team in Michigan, and we were actually doing lots of great interviews with patients to understand their needs, to understand their problems, to really see them also in their everyday life, to see them in the clinic, and then be able to think, okay, what would be the thing in this app or platform that would help them improve the outcomes, would help them change their behavior. And we also have to think, like in behavior change design, we have to think about reducing the friction, and like sustaining the habits of end users. So like some of the examples, you might have seen like different notifications, right? We have notifications. Some time ago, notifications were used very widely in behavioral change design. But again, how many apps you have on your phone? Many. How many notifications you get every day? A lot. So instead of just like these simple alerts that will lead to actually fatigue, I would say right now, like also like information overload, we would have to think about some more meaningful interactions that would tied into to the progress or like reassurance of patients. So let's say instead of even like very complex onboarding that will last very long time when you log in for the first time to the application, simplify that into like small micro steps, because we also have very short attention span right now. So the shorter, kind of the smaller information, but more often the better for you. So then the patient, if patients will also see that the app is easy for them to use, they will continue on using that. But if they see, hey, it's hard, I don't feel comfortable using that, it will be, pretty hard to do so. So that's about like the patient, but also the clinician. It's also, what we discussed, the interoperability, like building an app for clinician that will also build, let's say, another, like will adapt the overload, will create kind of overload for physician, will not help with behavior change design neither. So because clinicians, we have to think about like how can we reduce their cognitive overload, because they are super busy in this. So again, instead of flooding the dashboard with their platform with like many different data that they have to analyze, we as a product designers, as a product builders, let's say, we have to surface this data, this information, and give them only the information, the pieces that will be helpful for them in specific time for specific situation. So we have to think as a designers, instead of physicians, of what would be useful right now. It's not easy. It's not easy task, and that's why, as we mentioned, digital health space still struggles with that, because each specific use case, I would say, it's different. So before even designing anything, understand your end user, understand your clinician, patient, to really try to put yourself into their shoes. So I would say like this.
Thank you, Veronica. Digital tools only work if people actually use them, and behavior designs make that possible. Now, this relates to another challenge we were talking about earlier that innovators face, which is commercialization and long-term adoption. So many innovators struggle with commercialization models, yet these decisions directly shape global well-being. What should early teams consider when planning for adoption and sustainability so their digital health solutions can meaningfully reach patients and improve outcomes at scale?
And great question. Again, great question, because, we have to think about commercialization and reimbursement strategies. So I would say that, the teams should need to think beyond just pricing and ask some deeper questions about like incentives and adoption. Like, for example, okay, I build a product. Who pays for this product? Who benefits from this product? Who must change their workflow? Do they need to change the workflow? Because, let's say a solution may help patients, but if clinicians or health systems will not actually see operational or financial value, I would say we have a problem with adoption, right? Because health systems must see financial or operational value. Clinicians must see the value as well. The value could be, oh, I can spend more time with patient instead of just inputting the data manually, or I can see the information, early, that is needed instead of analyzing that by myself. So I would say that successful teams you would really align their value proposition with existing reimbursement structures and different emerging models, because they are like some of our clients that we work with recently benefited from some new reimbursement, really, I would say, opportunities. Different models, because CMS, they keep on working on many different models, and I would say that teams that want to be successful should stay up to date, because they are new opportunities. But if you if there's no, let's say, nuance, you should understand or work with a partner, reimbursement commercialization expert that would help you define the commercial strategy and reimbursement strategy to really create the value for all of these different stakeholders and and be successful. Think about how your solution can reduce cost or save time or maybe prevent some downstream events for some health systems. And really think about how can you create and show the evidence that is really needed to support the reimbursement strategy.
So true. As you mentioned, defining real workflows, clear value, and sustainable models early helps ensure these solutions can reach the people who need them the most. And that brings us perfectly to our final question. Keeping with the theme of the podcast, if you had 60 seconds, what one insight would you share that would help digital innovators globally build safer, more impactful products?
Great question again. So if I had 60 seconds, I would say design for real life, not for perfect conditions. And again, as I mentioned, put yourself into the shoes of end users. So, also align safety, align evidence and economics from day one. So put your end users, patients, clinicians first, design for real life, because, if you think about real patients will forget to log into the application, will forget about some other stuff. Real clinicians are overloaded with the information, with their work. Real health systems are also constrained with different workflows, with reimbursement, with different regulations. So if your product does not take that all into consideration, it will be hard to be successful. So really think about all of that from day zero, because I would say that really successful digital health products would embed the regulatory thinking as a kind of foundation. But then we'll also use, I will link this to our conversation, we'll use also behavior change design to drive then real engagement of the users, and then also align the commercial and reimbursement strategies from very early on. And if you have that all in place, and then add on the safety and usability on top of this, I would say you will succeed. You will succeed. So really think about that all as a one. Regulatory, commercial, business, patients, and and if you think about all of that as a one system when building your product, you will be okay.
That's a strong closing point and a clear message for anybody building in digital health today. Weronika, thank you so much for sharing your insights with the audience. Your perspective brings clarity to one of the most complex areas of digital health. It has been a pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Really, thank you so much for having me here today, and it was lovely.